simply lovely.
Through goes Hamilton! And it's lights out and away we go!
Simply lovely.
Love the new intro.
Time for another Carbon Cardboard podcast episode covering the Formula One sports card hobby. Again, Scott, it's been a hot minute.
Yep. A lot going on.
There's a lot going on. It is extremely difficult to coordinate one of these.
Well, it's just, I mean, right now, this time of year, like obviously release and everything, I was crazy busy for the first couple weeks of the product coming out, and then, vacations and everything. You had the Patriots playoff run, which was really good aside from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was.
That.
I got a chance to go to all the playoff games in Foxborough. A good buddy of mine has season tickets, and we got to go see the Chargers game, the Texans game. Obviously, I had to watch the Denver game on TV. Yep. And I was just telling everybody, I'm like, we're playing with house money. Nobody expected us to get more than 8 wins this year. We ended with 17. And it was just a fun season. It's something very similar, Scott, that I tell all the sports teams, soccer teams I coach, especially when a lot of the kids are really down after a loss. And the thing I tell them is, for every team on the planet that played a game today, 50% of those teams lost. I mean, you could have Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen in 1v1. One of them's going to lose. So you get a matchup like against the Seahawks. There, you're going to get a winner and a loser.
They're a good team. In F1, it's even worse because on a given race now this year, 21 drivers are going to lose, and only one winner. So yeah. So what do we got on deck today? So we're actually going to take a quick look at the car liveries. Yep. Speaking of Super Bowl, we just saw the first look at Cadillac's entry during the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl last night. Kind of exciting. Pretty cool commercial.
And we also got Aston Martin and McLaren today. So that rounded out the team of it doesn't roll off the tongue, Scott. 11 teams. I'm so used to saying 10. I'm going to say it now. I'm going to usually refer to 20 drivers. 22.
There's 22.
Got to put some respect on Checo and Valtteri's names. Got to take a look at our impressions of Chrome, Scott, which is actually really fitting because this is episode 75 of the podcast covering Formula One 2025 75th edition. Talk briefly about Logofractor dropping in over across the pond, and wrap up the show talking about what we know about Sapphire. Sapphire always tails Chrome. Looks like we're actually going to get a release later this week with the EQL. So we'll cover that in a little bit more in depth. But just for some fun, just to shake the rust off here, we are going to briefly here talk about the liveries. Just first impressions. We don't have to go through all 11, Scott. But
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, let's maybe talk about some of our favorites. And it's hard to say which ones you'd really dislike because, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you
them all.
Hate them all.
No, and so obviously, the post, if you're watching this, so you see the post, we're going to be posting this later this week. I'm way behind. I have the graphics for Alpine, Ferrari, and Williams already made that I haven't been able to post. So I've been busy. And then obviously now Cadillac, Aston Martin, and McLaren are all done. So yeah, you'll see me posting them throughout the week, and then I'll ultimately post this one. But we've got all 11 teams now. I'll give you my favorite, and then kind of like a dark horse or one that I think is kind of cool. So my favorite, and it's not even close. And this is going to show a lot of, kind of who I enjoy and who I cheer on. Red Bull. To me, This livery is amazing. Everyone says every year Red Bull's livery, it's the same exact livery every year. Oh, look, they changed it. No, they didn't. This time they actually did change it significantly. You could look at all the Red Bull cars and they all look relatively similar, but this one, it really harkens back to my man, Sebastian Vettel era. I mean, this is like the Renault Infinity type livery that they had in the 2010s. And there's a little bit different. It's not quite as like purple. That one had a bit more of a purple hue on it, but it's very similar. The white outline on the Red Bull and like everything. So for me, Red Bull is my favorite without a doubt. And then one that I think is really cool, and I think it's had a bit of a mixed reception, but I actually really like Cadillac. And the reason I do is because I love that it's different on either side. Like that, to me, I think that's really cool. And I think they did it in a clever way. So yeah. So I think that one's cool. If not just for the fact that it's a black car on one side, it's a white car on the other, or kind of gray or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. So those are mine. What's your favorite? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tough because not a lot of them, they don't change significantly year to year. I think for me, I think the tie goes between either Mercedes or Ferrari.
Mm,
I know the Ferrari isn't for everybody. Everybody hates the big HP
yeah.
there. I actually like that it's kind of uh, the way that they designed it this year kind of goes back to like their 1976 car with
Okay.
Niki Lauda. But I can't unsee the meme, Scott, where they have Lewis Hamilton sitting in there with his yellow helmet and it looks like an egg just because he's like
Yeah, that's
surrounded
true.
by white. Um, but I also like the Mercedes. I like the stripes on the side. It's
Yeah.
not quite like the Adidas symbols there, but I think the Mercedes is going to look really good on track.
I agree with that. I also think, to your point, I think the choice to surround the HP logo with that white is a good one, because that big HP logo slapped right on the red looks really weird. So I like it more in a white background. And hey, hopefully, I mean, this is a year where the power units are even more electrical. So, HP hopefully bringing something to the table.
Um, for me, Scott, least favorite, I just can't get behind the Audi look. It looks very, just so basic. I don't know. Maybe
Listen,
it's not
some of
what
the
it's.
most basic liveries are the best. MP4-4 McLaren way back in the day, very basic.
Well, I mean, most of them were at that time, but valid point. I just
It's
don't.
true.
I don't. The color in the rear, it just doesn't. It's just not going to do it for me. I think right now.
Yep. Well, they'll probably be in the rear of the field, so you don't have to look at it too much.
Hopefully. How about you, Scott? Anyone
Hopefully.
that doesn't really do it for
Um,
you?
I mean, I don't think there's any of them that I hate, but like change year over year, I probably just knock Aston Martin just because it's the same, very, very, very similar. So yeah, I think it still looks good, but I just, I like to see at least one like key change. Is what I'd like to see. So yeah, that's where I'd go.
I was actually surprised they really removed a lot of the yellow that they had the last couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
So it's more
Just all that
s yeah.
forest green or
Anyways,
whatever they
so
call
we
it.
are actually gonna start seeing, hopefully, Scott, maybe not close to the media, but actually see some of these, cars on track. Was it this
First
weekend?
week. First week. Yeah, it starts before the weekend. But it is, yeah, this is the first week of testing. It's funny because like it's the first week, but clearly, they had the shakedown already, which was a test, right? Like, we had teams do hundreds of laps. Like it was a test. But they are so adamant. Like, even if you go on like F1 social media posts and everything, it was the first test. like they're like, guys, this is it. This is the first test. We definitely haven't had any other tests already, but Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I don't know how all the viewing is going to be handled. Because obviously everything used to be on F1 TV and stuff. So I'll have to look into that. I'm woefully unprepared. But I'll be trying to watch as much of it as I can, whether it's on, F1's YouTube channel or if it's on F1 TV through Apple TV, one way or another. If it's on, we'll be watching it every minute of it too, by the way. Like, whether I'm able to watch it live or not, it'll get consumed. Because it's just, man, it's fun to see cars on track after not doing it for so long. And there is something special. I know I've talked about this before. There's something special about a new regulation and seeing those cars on track. Like, I remember 2022 being way more interested in testing than I was, 2023, 2024. So I'm excited for it. Cars back on track. We've ripped through a bunch of products. So we got our new products, and now we get to see our new cars.
Well, speaking of those new products, Scott, so what has it been? A couple weeks now with
2.5 or so.
2025 Topps Chrome F1 75th edition. Last time we convened, we were kind of previewing it. We had seen some of the cards, but we hadn't really seen a lot open yet. Now, I mean, the castle, you guys have been busy opening.
Yeah, we ripped a few. I think over the first 4 days, the whole team, we ripped like 50 cases. So we've definitely done a lot of it. We've ripped a lot of the value boxes as well, but value, hobby, all kind of makes Chrome. And it's been fun. I mean, obviously it's always fun to rip a new product, but this year, I mean, there's just so many new inserts. So many of the old inserts that were redesigned look a lot better. There's so many rookies. So like, there's just a lot more excitement around it than in previous years. Like, literally from 2024 release to 2025 is night and day in terms of how excited people have been. 2024, people are always gonna, be excited for a new release. But I think it took, 4 days before everyone was like, oh, okay, all right, it's a product. But I mean, this is still like, people love it, man. People are still, messaging me every day. When is your next break going up? Et cetera, stuff like that. So yeah, it's gonna have longer legs, I think. And obviously there's multiple products that we'll go through later in the show, but Chrome is, the bread and butter, and everyone loves the Superfractor. So we've seen a lot of the big Superfractors come out, but a lot of Superfractors are still yet to be hit. One of 2 debut patches, the Bortoletto got hit, Hajar still out there. But yeah, overall positive. And we'll talk about kind of some of the issues that they had, but I think in general, it's been a great release. Folks are really excited about the product. I think without a doubt, the win of the product has been just in general the value boxes. And I think it's because of the juxtaposition from last year qualifying lap to this year value box, right? They're cheaper than a quality lap box was, but they're definitely better. Really fun rip, those value boxes. I think there's a little bit of a skewed misconception on how easy it is to hit from them, just because you see so many people posting online like, oh, I hit this at home, I hit this at home. And like, odds are it probably came out of a value box. And that's not necessarily because value boxes have more hits. In fact, they have less hits, but it's because they're so much cheaper, right? And they're so much more readily available. So folks, it's a lot easier to pick up a value box and go home and rip it than it is a hobby box. They're, 1/10 the cost or 1/8, whatever it is. I know the price has been going up on those like crazy, but they're much cheaper. So it's easier to rip them at home. And then, we're seeing a lot more people rip through them. So you're going to see a lot of hits. But it is cool that they've got, a lot of big hits in there. I mean, there's not a ton of stuff that you can't hit in value. There is some, some of the SPs like the Grail and certain other cards you can't hit in value boxes. But in general, you can hit a lot of stuff, and you can hit autos. They're tough to pull, but you can hit them, and the chance is always nice. But yeah, they've been a huge win this year, I think, value boxes compared to to quality last year. But yeah, overall, people are loving the product. What do you think? You've been consuming
Yeah,
it.
that was actually going to be the main point that I was going to make is the difference between 2020, 2024 and this year in 2025 is I remember watching you on stream, Scott, like, opening those quality lap boxes. And I think everybody was like
It's insane.
dumbfounded that there was only one hit for each of those, like on release day.
Yep.
And I mean, there was what, how 20 boxes in a case or something like that. You were looking at about 20 hits
Yeah.
tops.
you get
Um,
like one extra maybe
and you're
parallel.
talking like a mini diamond or something like that at a 299 out of a box. Like talk about wah, 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 just like and then on top of that, the retail blasters that they had last year, you were gonna get maybe two of the sepia refractors. You could hit an insert. I know Justin Incident hit a Lewis Hamilton superfractor.
Yeah.
I have one of those last year. But overall, those were dead on arrival products, and it was just the hobby boxes that really mattered. And you said it. I've seen so many more people excited about them. I've seen it took a while here in New Hampshire for some of the boxes to show up, but like at Books a Million, Target, I've seen a
Mhm.
bunch, and it's just cool to see that I
Yeah.
walk by and as much as I wanna grab all of the boxes and rip them because 'cause they're so good, like, it's also kinda cool to just walk by like, yeah, you know, leave them. Hopefully, maybe some kids will open them up, Formula 1's gaining some steam in the
Oh yeah.
younger audiences and get more people in the hobby that way, and hopefully they get a really big hit. You're right. I mean, on average, it's about you're lucky you get 2 hits, but some of them are pretty good. I mean, I grabbed a couple blasters the other day, and, one of these cards is off to, rated rips already, but I had an out of 5, Colapinto Speed Demon.
There you go. That's huge.
It
Wow.
is.
That's amazing.
A lot
Yeah.
of a lot of decent stuff in, like, even in that under 200 range, but because I think for me, the just having open I haven't yet to open a hobby box, but the value boxes, you're the way that they structured the checklist, yes, you're gonna hit some F2 and F3, but because they took all those CAS out of there,
I know.
it really helps in the fact that they added back a lot of the Grand Prix. You've got the pole position for a couple of the races, and just the way that they structured the set, it just feels like you're getting more value for what you're opening, and it truly is,
Yeah.
and it feels like an F1 product and not an F2 or F3 product.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think and I always make this cringy dad joke. But value boxes are full of value, right? Like the biggest thing for me is just the price point is just so good on value boxes. If you can get them at the $30, I mean, it is a home run, grand slam. I have yet to buy a $30 box. All the boxes I've bought have been more expensive than that, just because I'm getting them online and whatever. And I didn't really order any on release. I wish I had from Topps, but then I've seen a couple in the wild, but I always kind of resist just because like you said, I want them to be there for the folks that are gonna rip them, enjoy them, kind of join the F1 card hobby and stuff. And I've got plenty here now if Sebastian ever wants to rip one or something. So yeah, but yeah, I think it's been a great product. This honestly, it's a product that's right up your alley, Brian. Because you used to always like the light products like
Yep.
2021, 2022, and you'd be like, yeah, I mean, come on, who needs an F2 auto? But these you can your chances are low, but you can hit an auto out of these, which is cool. So I love that. And I think that overall these value boxes are the best retail F1 product they've ever made. Um, and I think we're going to see them. I think they're already like north of $50 if you're like buying them anywhere online, really. But or they're just sold out. So if you find them out there, you're doing well if you're getting them at standard MSRP.
Yeah, I'm trying to think before we get into some of the the things that we're probably less than thrilled, because this is by far, by no means this is not a perfect release. Topps isn't without fault here, at all. And I don't have any kind of a Topps account, so I can be the one that can be more negative about this.
There you go.
But I just like you said, the inserts are so much better. I love Neon Nations. Like I've actually hit a couple Neon Nations out of value boxes.
Yeah.
Like I hit a Max out of a value box. I hit an Oscar out of a value box. And it's just kind of cool to know you're getting, I mean, it's usually on average about 2 per case or so, but to get that out of a value box is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they did a lot of awesome stuff with this set, and we talked about it, before we, ripped it. Just like, man, all the chases that are in here, right? There's the new diamonds, 1 of 1, relics. There's the diamond 75th anniversary packs. There's, upgraded. Yeah, look at that Oscar Piastri 1 of 1. There it is. Look at that beauty. And then there's, just more autographs, right? Max, Lewis. This is the most Max and Lewis autographs we've seen in any F1 product ever. And that includes Dynasty, where every single card is an autograph. So and this year, both Lewis and Max have green out of 99s, 75th out of 75, gold out of 50. We'd never seen those before for any of these drivers. Max had a gold wave a couple times, but we've just never seen that. And so there's so many more. And we'll talk about silver. Silver is actually probably more rare than maybe even gold. At the amount that they've been pulled, I feel like silver is pretty rare for those two. But they just have a lot more autos in general. And then even, in value, they've got the out of 25s, the out of 10s, and out of 5s. So there's more there too. So there's more Max and Lewis autos than ever before, which is really cool. Inserts look great. They did a true hidden gems this time, where it wasn't on the checklist. They've done this in other sports too, where it wasn't on the checklist. No one knew it was in the set. And then, whoa, hidden gems. Where are they coming from? Well, they're hidden. But yeah, so that's been fun. I mean, there's just a lot of new things they've done. They have the black out of 10. Now they got the black checker out of 10. They've added a lot more new parallels. I really love the blue out of 150. The true blue. Oh man, it pops. And I think there's something about the design for this year. And I honestly, I don't even know if I can really quite put my finger on it. It may have to do with the left hand of the card, but the true colors look so clean. I was looking at a gold Antonelli portrait that I had hit for Mike Twins Time Vault. Twins Breaks 2 on his different names. And man, the border and everything, it just works so well with the card. I feel like in past years, of 2020 aside, of course, in past years, the border is just so, it's either too skinny or it just takes away from the card, or it's so different from the card. But I don't know, this year, and maybe it is the fact that the name and everything kind of meshes or melds in on that left-hand side. But man, they just look so good. I really, really do like the design this year. And I think when you're thinking real long-term, that stuff does matter. When you think about 2021 versus 22, 23, 24, all the different designs, because eventually we're going to be sitting here in 15 years. And it's going to be all right, well, you've got 2020, and that's just its own thing. But then you've got, okay, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, all of these years of Lewis Hamilton portraits. And it's okay, which one do you want? What gold Lewis Hamilton portrait do you want, right? And you're going to go to the one that has the best combination of overall card design plus the image that they use. And I think this year has just done a really good job. Up on the screen right now, we've got, then we'll talk about it in a little bit, but we've got the Darth Fractor, Kimi Antonelli portrait, right? And if you get an actual black out of 10, I mean, God, that is a beautiful card. It matches in so many ways, but it is just, I think they've hit a good stride in terms of, the background. Like it's very similar to last year's in terms of like, kind of racy vibes, but it's not quite as distracting as last year's was. Last
Mhm.
year, I think like it was a little too distracting. This year, the driver is prominent enough, and the borders are like solid enough that it actually kind of all comes together as a nice piece. So that's one of the main things that I love about this year is I think just the design looks good. And Speed Demons is so much better this year. Futuro looks better this year than last year. A lot of the inserts I think have gotten upgraded. Yeah, there you go. Speed Demons of Lewis Hamilton has a little like, Prism NASCAR vibes, but that's okay. Because it's better than what we've had for Speed Demons before. So, yeah, overall first impressions, I like the product. I like it more than 2024. I like it more than 2023. I like it more than 2022 and more than 2021. I would probably rank it as the second best product. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of
Mhm.
them being that there's 5 rookies, and that's very uncommon for Formula One. But it's just been a really fun product to rip. And, it seems like, the way that collectors are talking about it and are sharing their thoughts and opinions with me that, they're really enjoying it compared to last year. eh, it was just a different vibe. There wasn't as much to be going for. There were no rookies. Um, and we have a lot of special things this year. The Grail, which we'll talk about soon, was a really big undertaking, a huge thing that was really fun and engaging. There were some issues, but just they're thinking outside the box. And yeah, they've done it in soccer before, but so what? It's cool to see them bring things over from other sports that are successful and that are fun. So a lot of good things to be said for this year overall. Um, but to your point, this is not without faults, and there are some significant ones that we have to talk about because we want all of the collectors' thoughts and opinions and our thoughts and opinions and everything ultimately to get to Tops. And this is feedback that I share with them as well. Whether that email, goes into a spam folder or not, you know, who who knows how much pull we have. But I think they do listen. I mean, one of the things that I talked about a decent amount is just the imagery in general is so much better this year. When we had the checklist, we didn't necessarily have images of all the cards. I mean, if you look at the drivers of the day, Grand Prix winners, etc., so many of these cards are, you know, the drivers in the frame. They're well positioned in the frame, right? It's like waist up, helmet on for a lot of these images. And they just look so good that this is without a doubt the best, just like pure, like the images they chose are the best for sure. And that's even better than 2020. Like 2020 is the best and will always be the best, but it's not necessarily because they chose the best images, right? Like they have some
Mhm.
great ones, and the portraits, I think the sizing of the portraits is phenomenal in 2020. But there's some pictures that are not great of drivers, secondary portraits or some of the horizontal stuff, driver of the day and everything that they use. And this year, I mean, gosh, I think there's so many max cards where it's just like, wow, this image is amazing. And oh
I
my
think
God, this
I
image is
think there's
amazing.
one image, Scott, that I think I wish they would have redone, and maybe they didn't realize it, but there was one of the, Charles Leclerc has one, gosh, I think it's his driver of the day Abu Dhabi card, and he's got, like, his tongue sticking out.
Oh yeah, the little like
Yeah. It's just the way that,
some
I'm
people
sure,
like that.
well, it's just
Yeah,
it's
I
just
don't think that's
not,
one of the best
but I
images.
mean, if that's as nitpicky as you're gonna be about the photography here, I think my final, like, kind of positive thing to say before I kind of transition into where,
Just bash.
giving feedback to improve. I agree. this isn't even recency bias. I think for all the different reasons you said, I feel like this is going to clearly be, in terms of Chrome releases, the second best one since 2020. The imagery is phenomenal. There's so many different things more going for it. Like I said, there's so few like poor photos in this, and like the checklist I feel like is great, 1 to 200. The inserts are great. I think, and I'm glad you actually mentioned it, where you said that like collectors are excited about this, because I made this comment to somebody earlier today that like this is more of a, it feels like this feels weird to say. It's more of like a collector set than kind of an investment set, and it's mostly just because I feel like there's way more collectability in this for Formula One fans, but the QC and quality of the cards and the different things. I mean, I have this stack here that I went through for somebody earlier today at Q3 Cards. These are all ones that I would not recommend grading, and I maybe pulled about 10 cards out of that stack that I think have a decent chance at a PSA 10. I would not be surprised, Scott, if the gem rates of 2025 Chrome is not dissimilar to 2020
Wow.
in terms of that. But with 2020, the refractors had the better chance of the gem rates. I think top to bottom, all the different parallels and stuff that you'll see here, a PSA 10 is going to hold a lot more value in this set, because I would not be surprised, based on just what I've seen out of the pack, what I've been preparing cards for people, that you're probably looking at maybe like a 20 to 25% gem rate.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
think
that'll
a PSA 9 is going to be a very strong grade with this set.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see kind of how it, because obviously right now there's so few of these cards that have been graded or even submitted. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of mets itself out in terms of the percentage. Because I think to your point, it is very collectible, and yeah, I don't know if investment is the right type of. I
Yeah,
think
that
it's a
maybe
very
wasn't the right term I was looking for, but
well. I'm just saying, like, I think it could be a like prospecting type set, right? Like there's a lot of prospecting you can do in this, because we have like the first badge for F3, F2 drivers. We've got the product a little bit earlier. I would have loved to have it, you know, a year ago. Like some of the other sports get it before their season starts. But it is nice that now you can take some of those, like Rafael Kamara and some of the other folks, and be like, okay, they did good in F3. Now let's see how they do in F2. I've got a couple of their cards, autographs of the F3 guys, pretty cool. And we see a lot of first autographs this year that are doing well, and a lot of drivers that have not first cards, but they have their first year of autographs, like Lindblad and Fornaroli. It'll be cool to see how they do in their respective seasons. Lindblad obviously in V card Formula One, and Fornaroli's reserve for McLaren, which who knows how things go in McLaren this year. Might be a big falling out between their drivers. Who knows? Maybe they'll need to slot somebody in. But yeah, it's fun in a lot of different ways. We'll have to see ultimately, what cards resale for. Sales have been very strong initially, but sales are always strong initially for new sets. It's really when you get to like 3 months out where cards are selling, that is more indication of the longevity and the sales strength of singles. So we'll see where things are at come May to really gauge that. But yeah, overall, mostly positive. But we do have to talk about the negatives, Brian. We gotta
yeah, I
gotta give
mean,
feedback.
not to completely rehash it, because I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, Scott, you said the Grail Chase. It was ambitious from Topps, but I think, and I felt for those that were going to try to be the first, and I do not have the disposable income to be able to make,
Same.
some of these chases that were being done. And my soul would have been crushed if the community didn't come together and help people out. Just knowing that, I mean, you go for one of these grail cards and then you find out that there's no code on the back. Like my heart would be in my throat. I would want to go
Yeah.
go throw up somewhere.
Yeah, and so yeah, again, I'm sure most people know, but if you don't, if this is the first you're hearing for it, so obviously the Grail had multiple issues. So the main issue is that some of the cards of the Grail did not have codes on the back, right? You're supposed to, get the card and then you peel the back, and under it is a code. It's not, you don't scratch it off like a redemption. You peel it and then you kind of put it back down or whatever. And then you would go onto the website, put in that code, and once you collect all 9, if you're the first person, you get a certain prize, or if you're one of the next 5, you get another prize. And we'll touch on that in a minute. But some of the cards did not have codes, and honestly, the majority. And so what Topps had said in their statement is that there were test prints made, a lot of them apparently, that shouldn't have been inserted in the product, right? And so cards that have no code on the back, like you can't submit them to do anything with the Grails. So what are they worth? Like they're useless, right? The card itself is still cool, right? The Grail cards are cool. Once everything's all done and all the winners and everything are picked and everything, I may put together the set just to have all 9. It would be cool. Vaulted X display. I think that'd be awesome. But I contacted Topps right away and was like, hey, big issues with the Grails, because not only that, but other people had codes on some of their cards, but then the website wasn't working. And in something where there is a race to be first or to be one of the next 5, like that stuff matters, right? You got to be able to put in your codes. So they eventually did get the website working correctly. But the big thing they did was that and it's still running now through February 27th. If you have a non-code Grail, you can turn that in to Topps for $5,000 fan cash, which then you can use, on Fanatics Collect, Fanatics Live, on the Fanatics store, and on Fanatics Sportsbook. so you've got a bunch of different options with that fan cash, but that's awesome, right? For it to be huge mistake. Now these cards are useless and worthless to, oh, well, now they're worth a lot of money. And now when people are opening it, especially because at this point, as of the time of recording, the grand prize, the number 1 prize, has already been hit. And then 4 out of the 5 runner-up prizes are already gone. So there's only 1 prize left. But right now, you want a non-coded card. And I mean, especially after that last one gets gone, you definitely do. But you want a non-coded card, because if you get a non-coded card, that's 5,000 fan cash. Now, once we hit February 27th, then at that point, assuredly, the last prize will have already been gone. And then you also won't get the 5,000 fan cash. So then I'm interested to see what the Grail cards start selling for in March, when there's no more prize. There's no more $5,000 fan cash. It's just, this is the card. I'm curious to see what they sell for, because there's not going to be a ton of them. There's more than there should have been, but there's not going to be a ton. So I am curious to see what they sell for. But yeah, so a big whoopsie by Topps on the Grail. But at the end of the day, I think they did right by collectors. $5,000 fan cash is a very aggressive number. And some people think it was not enough. Some people think it was more than enough. No one's ever gonna fully agree on everything, but ultimately I think they acted quickly, decisively, and with a strong return for collectors. So I think they handled it in the right way, right? And I said this on my stream was, think of last year, huge issue where the pad autos being put in Chrome. And it was like, wow, there were literally, everyone was saying, oh, Sapphire's dead. Oh, Sapphire's dead product, terrible, dead. No one's going to want it, even though it was the first year that they'd ever had pad autos in Sapphire. But they still have all the other autos. So like, why would it be dead if you're getting everything else and you're getting inserts for the first time ever? There was a lot going for Sapphire last year. Regardless, I think people were just, oh, I'm upset, so I'm going to yell about it. But they then had the best fix ever. Helmet collection pad autos, Speed Demons pad autos, and Call the Shot pad autos were added to that product. So it made that product better. Chrome was inherently better because it had random pad autos in it. But Sapphire last year, I mean, again, 2020 is just never in the discussion, but like probably the best Sapphire product ever. I mean, it was the first year that they had inserts. So that meant helmet collection. And then they had a full suite of autos minus the pads. Although some still came out in Sapphire. And then they had the helmet collection pad autos, which were some of the biggest cards ever. So they turned a negative into, we had to delay it and move things around. And it was probably crazy from the logistical side on their end. But it turned Sapphire into an amazing product. And I kept saying, like, hey, guys, people make mistakes. Topps makes mistakes. We make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? And you learn a lot about people in terms of how do they handle those mistakes. If someone makes a mistake, if they tell you, oh, well, too bad, we messed up and, that's it, then, that's not a great response. But if they, go above and beyond and make it right, like that is awesome to see. And I think Topps did a good job, responding to the valid criticism and to the issue that, had become apparent with the Grail. So, but it'll all be over in a couple weeks. Once we hit that 27th date and, assuming the last one gets completed by then they'll just be regular cards, which by themselves they're pretty cool cards. They look cool, little stained glass. So yeah, that was the Grail issue. So Brian, talk to us about
serial number issue. Probably.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I was just we can jump to that. I mean, on screen you referred to it as like the Darth Refractor here.
Darth Fractor.
Fractor.
It's the Darth Fractor. Yeah. Shout out to Bill, aka B Pans on whatnot, or ironically, before he even knew who we were, P1_Pans33 on Instagram. Yep. He's like, oh, I had no idea the P1. He goes, now I'm part of the family just by association. He came up with the name.
I got a big box from him over my shoulder here.
Awesome.
He's like, hope you don't mind. I just sent you everything. Just go through it. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Bill's a great guy. But with that, and then also going back to those value boxes, the 4 and more inserts all have a test serial number on there of 0000.
Yeah, and those are on all the diamond drives too, and
the diamond drives. So like it's been interesting to see people that normally don't break F1. And we're happy to see it because get more people interested in it. But every time those cards come up, they're like, oh, is this something big? And then like they're like sleeving and top loading the diamond drives, and everyone's like, dude, that's like a pretty common insert. I mean, it's cool. It's going to be a cool little mini set, and some of the cards, like the Vegas one, look pretty good. But it's just a shame that some of the stuff has like a fake serial number on it. Where somebody asked me this, Scott, because it's on screen here. You've got the black Kimi Antonelli portrait here. Based on 4 or 5 years of doing this with PSA, I don't know if they would grade that.
Well, we gotta test it for science.
I mean, I'm going to, like, if somebody sends me one, I will try. I am about 75% sure PSA is going to kick that back and say that it's a factory error, and they will
What
not probably
would you
grade it.
submit it as?
I would actually probably send that if somebody had one and they really wanted it encased. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people like to have consistency in their slabs with PSA. I would actually probably go with CGC on that because they actually will grade error cards and actually list it on the label.
Gotcha. So that aside, because I would want it. PSA. If you're submitting to PSA,
If you have
how would you submit
OCD
it?
and you want everything the
Yeah.
same,
How would you submit it? Like, do you put that in as like black refractor? Like, is like how would you? Because you have to like I don't submit to PSA, but when you submit to PSA, you got to put in like what it is, right? Oh, it's a gold refractor or whatever. Like, what would you label that
So
as if you were submitting it?
I would probably put it as a black refractor. So that will come up for some of the people because it's on the checklist. I just don't know how they're going to handle it if it's not a serial
Some are going to
number
get
on it.
through 100%. Some of them are going to get through. I'm going
Well,
to send in a bunch.
the good
man, I'm telling you.
well, it's a very similar example, but not the best apples to oranges. But I know it's just trying to help Racing and Chronos get a Sebastian Vettel 2020 error refractor auto that doesn't have the sticker on it to get graded.
Yeah.
I've tried 5 or 6 times and PSA has kicked it back every single time for a factory error. But I know for a fact that Alex Albon has several that were graded.
And I have seen Vettel graded too. Now, I will say, I think that is a little different because it's like an obvious thing. Like this, dude, if you get someone who's not extremely knowledgeable about all of the issues, and you're just saying, like, you have it listed and they look at it, oh, black refractor, and it's black, and on the back it says refractor, grade the card. Like I agree. I think some will get kicked back for, oh, it's an error or whatever. But I'm telling you, man, some of these are going to get through. And it's going to be weird because if you submit a black out of 10, the label doesn't say black out of 10. Like the label says black refractor.
Mm-hmm.
So there will probably be some of these slabs that say black refractor that have the serial number, and there'll be some of these slabs that say black refractor that don't have the serial number. And it is going to be very interesting to see like prices on them and everything. And again, guys, I know we've kind of like waffled around. The actual issue here is that in a batch of cards, and we haven't seen this happen a ton. I think a couple random posts of folks that had ripped like some value boxes and they saw, in a couple of theirs had these. And then we actually had one where an entire half of a case, not the entire case, but half of the case had these in them. But essentially what it is these are refractors and it is in the spot where a refractor would be. And on the back, it says refractor. They are refractors, except instead of the silver kind of chrome refractor sheen, they get the black border refractor sheen, and they look exactly like a black out of 10 minus having the serialization on it. But it does say refractor on the back, whereas I don't think a black out of 10 would, right? Like if you have, I don't think if you've got a black out of 10, it's not going to say refractor in the back. Only the refractors say refractor in the back.
So I think now, having a second to collect my thoughts about this, that's going to get messy on the pop report because some of them might just get graded as a refractor. Some of them, you might end up with more than 10 black refractors on the pop report. Now, obviously, it happens all the time when people crack and resubmit and stuff, and they don't send in the label, which you don't necessarily need to do. I could pontificate on PSA for days. That just got spicy, Scott.
It's gonna be chaos. I would say just submit them if you want them graded. Submit them as soon as you can, because the thing that shuts everything down is ultimately if like Topps sends information to PSA and says, hey, these cards specifically do not grade them. So you got to try to get that in before that happens or before that information becomes widespread for all the graders at PSA.
And I will say also too, so you said you don't submit. So what usually happens at a new release is oftentimes what will happen is the entire checklist gets uploaded to the PSA database. So when you enter the basic information of a card, you'll get pre-filled information. At release, that's not there. So I sent something today. It's completely obnoxious because nothing is in there yet. So you're hand typing and everything or copying and paste. I use spreadsheets, so I copy and paste what I'm tracking for individuals in there, but nothing comes up. So it's a manual entry. So what will eventually happen is they'll upload the checklist from Topps and it'll be there. In the meantime, now is the time to do it.
Get them in.
Do it now.
Yeah. But yeah, and so the name Darthfractor, pretty sweet. I like it. It'll be interesting to see. And there's probably more than 10 of, I don't know how widespread this issue is. I think it potentially was going to be much more widespread. Who knows? Maybe this was one of the big reasons for the delay. Because imagine if every single refractor was like this. That would be a whole nother story. Yeah, I'm sure there's more than 10 of each of these instances out there. So they should be worth less money than the out of 10. They also don't have the serial number, but things like this are cool. You don't like, it's an error and it's a cool one. They look cool, the black bordered stuff. So I think people will want them. Like when we were opening it, everyone was going crazy for them. And when we got to the second half of the case and they weren't, Darthfractors anymore, people were like, dang. So I think people would rather have them than a regular refractor. So who knows? Maybe this is news for Topps. Maybe next year just have your refractors have black borders or something.
I don't know, Scott. I'm a traditionalist. For my money, I've got a bunch of these on my desk. Just give me the silver refractors. I've got a bunch of the 2020 stuff, like out of any of the parallels and stuff. Just I'm a simple man. Just give me my refractors. Especially this year, with the image variations also being so rare.
Yeah, they are very
just rare. Sent one of those. Thank you, Chris. Just an incident. Hit me one of those last week. It literally showed up in my mail today. I think I prepped it 5 minutes later. Yeah, the Kimi Antonelli one with holding his helmet.
Best looking one.
But yeah, I mentioned it before, like with the QC issues, like I think it's going to be very similar to 2020. A couple things I've seen, there's every release has this. There's print lines, dinged corners, marks in the back. Actually, we talked about like the peel, Scott, with 2020.
Right.
2025 is going to be the dimple. A lot of cards actually have a dimple, like in, like if you turn a card sideways here, there's like a dimple like right here on so many cards. It'll be interesting to see, does PSA ding the dimple?
Do you ding the dimple?
Do you ding the dimple?
Or do you dimple the ding?
But like I said, PSA 10s are going to be not plentiful. They're going to be worth a lot more. And like you said, there's going to be a race to see who can get those black refractors in as quickly as possible.
Darthfractors, Brian.
Darthfractors.
Got to stick to the nameology. It's not the right word, but
I don't know. Like there's a lot of pluses. There's unfortunately a lot of minuses here, but I'd say overall, like this has been one of the funnest releases that I've seen.
Absolutely. The only other two things I want to touch on in terms of like, the negative issues. So one is that we do see some, and I actually haven't ran into this issue much at all. And I've ripped through at this point now, 40 plus cases. And I've only had like 3 or 4 boxes total. But there have been some boxes where instead of the hobby inserts, you're getting value box inserts. You're getting those 4 and more in the top speed. And I've seen it happen to people for entire cases, which is definitely feels bad, man. If that happens. So that is unfortunate. Hopefully it's not widespread. But that has been another issue. Randomly, I think, again, this has happened maybe 4 times total. You'll get a box that doesn't have a diamond pack in it, which is annoying because every box is supposed to. Every hobby box is supposed to have a diamond 75th anniversary pack. So when you don't have one, it's just, doesn't feel great. I've, clipped a bunch of them. Whenever it happens, we clip it. We'll send it to Topps. Hopefully they'll, send us packs or do something. Since it's, guaranteed. So if it's not in there, it's kind of annoying. But yeah, so those have been some minor issues. And then one that we touched on before the set came out, because we had images already. But now, everyone's gotten a chance to see everything, and we've gotten a chance to, like, see what collectors think and stuff. And honestly, this has probably ended up being one of the biggest issues and biggest, I don't know if this was, whether it was a design decision or a mistake or something, but the drivers not having portrait autographs is a terrible miss for this year. Like, for all the good things, that is a really bad one. Everyone, almost, maybe there's a handful of the percentage. I'm telling you, the percentage of people that would rather have, and you can see it on the screen, right? Like Max Verstappen in his polo and hat. The people that would rather have that picture as the autograph than the portrait are extremely small. It is less than 5%. I can say that confidently. People are not happy about it. And it's going to hurt the value of the autographs. Now, maybe it has a positive externality, is that the portraits themselves do better than in other years, because they don't have, it's the portrait or the portrait with an autograph on it. But the autographs themselves are definitely not going to do as well as they otherwise would have. And it's a shame, because, just do the portraits. And if you want to have some slightly different images, like if you look back to 2020, they actually did a really good job with it. In 2020, a lot of them have different images, like Max Verstappen, for instance. Lewis Hamilton, that's not their portrait, but it's still in their full suit and a good looking image. This year, it's, some of them are okay. Like the Max is okay. Nico Hulkenberg, George Russell, like some of those are okay. Some of them look awful. Like, the Oscar Piastri image, the Kimi Antonelli on the scooter. I mean, some of them are just ridiculous. And they just have no point. They have no reason that they should be in there. There's no place for them. That is a paddock pass type image. That should be in paddock pass, or it should be their little on the move that is part of like their 1 through 200 set, that is supposed to, like, images of them in the paddock. Those are cool, and that's fine for it to be a random image in the 1 through 200 set. But to put it on the autograph, which is like the biggest part of Chrome autographs, like, it's a big miss. And yeah, hopefully they learn from that one, and we don't see this ever again.
I feel like it bothered me more pre-release than it does now. I don't know. It almost kind of makes it semi-unique.
Yeah,
I
it
probably
definitely
in
will.
more in that 5%. I actually kind of really like the Kimmy photo with the scooter, but um yeah, they it I don't know what happened. I don't have it, like I said, I don't have a Topps account, so I can speculate all I want here because I don't know. It almost feels like they just used the wrong set of photographs. Like, you're talking about drag and drop in one folder from images from one thing to another, and maybe some intern just tripped, and I don't know. It could have been anything.
Yeah.
But it just, you're right. It probably will hinder it a little bit long term, and it is really unfortunate. You had 5 rookies
5
on the grid.
rookies,
5 rookies on the grid this year,
Lewis
and
Hamilton, Ferrari.
that's their rookie auto. Although the really rare Lewis autographs are fine, like the on-card
The
stuff.
on-card ones. But that's the thing that drives me insane, is they look amazing. And again, they used a different image. That is not the image for his portrait. They did what they did in 2020, where it's a different image, but it's him in his suit. And it's so good. Oh my gosh. Those on-card autographs of Lewis look amazing. So why don't they all just look like that? Well, instead of this, like, oh, Lewis is okay. I'm not gonna belabor the point. Like, I definitely don't like them. And there are some people, like, you might be one of them, who likes it. But I'm telling you, it's not the majority of people. So Topps, please don't do it again. I beg you. I think that stuff is cool, but it's paddock pass. It is It is paddock pass. It's literally them in the paddock. Liam Lawson is like holding his phone. You know, like it's just not in Chrome, guys. Not in Chrome.
All right, this episode's already at an hour. We still got a bunch more content, so buckle up, people. This is going to go a little
This is
long.
gonna be a long one.
All right, maybe we'll just blast through this.
Yeah, we'll go. I mean, the rest of the stuff. This is really just stuff.
Logofractor dropped in the United Kingdom, like we said, at the London store, Fanatic store. Release date was January 29th.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like I've yet to see anybody actually open it. Actually, I have seen a few people open it. It does seem like there's the 2 packs again that have the Logofractor cards, and the rest are base. Do we know, Scott, if there are strictly just base cards in those other packs?
So it's similar to last year in that, like, so last year, for instance, and like, you know, in retrospect, maybe we should have opened them or something. But like last year, you could hit a base helmet collection, you know, like in a logo base pack. You can still hit base inserts. You can't hit parallels of them, but you can still hit base, which makes those packs actually not terrible. You know, you open up a base Lewis Hamilton helmet collection from 2024, and that's a pretty good card. But this year you can actually hit like the SSP inserts. Like you can hit, like people have said they hit a Vegas at Night out of one of those packs. Someone said they hit like a Neon Nations. So I don't know if you're going to be able to get away with just not opening them anymore. I don't know how I'll handle it. I mean, we're going to get some eventually, and it might be something where we open those 2 packs and then we, you know, randomize who we give the other packs to, and we just send them to them, and then they can rip them. But it is essentially the same, where it's the 2 Logofractor packs that have 5 cards each, with 2 hits in each pack, and then the, you know, the regular packs that don't really have much, but you've got a small chance at an insert.
I'm not terribly excited about this, Scott, just because we've got the awesome black out of 75 in Chrome.
It's true.
That looks very similar to this. It's not as, you know, frequent of seeing the F1 logo in the back, but
yeah, it's F1 75, so it's a little different. But yeah, it is the similar type of card.
Last year was cool. Last year's going to have a lot of notoriety because it was the first.
Yep.
I just, to me, this is kind of a nice to have, but not a must have.
You know, it reminds me a lot of Echelenza. So 2023 Echelenza, if you look at singles, if you look at box prices, everything, it's the most expensive. And it's because it's the first. 2024, if you look at the checklist and everything, you compare it. Like I remember when we were looking at 2024 Echelenza, we're like, oh my God, this is like Dynasty Light. They have F1 autographs in here now. It's not just Legends. Like, this is amazing. This is so cool. It you know, it was a complete flop, but it did not do as well as 2023 Echelenza. And then 2025 was just more of the same. So, and on paper, the products are getting better, right? They're adding more F1 autos. They're adding bigger, cooler patches, like whatever. It's getting better, but the reception from the community isn't as good because it's not the first year. And I think that's the exact same thing we're going to see with Logofractor this year. I think it's a better product. There are 1-of-1 autos in this product now. The black red 1-of-1 autos. Those are cool. There were no autos last year at all in Logofractor. This year you've got everything you had last year. You know, mostly they've changed some numbering around and whatever. Like now there's the yellow out of 75. No green out of 99, but so they changed some of the stuff, but overall it's better because they've got 1-of-1 autos now. That's a marketed improvement. You know, just on paper, you take the same product and add 1-of-1 autos to it, home run. But it's not going to do what it did last year, because last year it was organic in how the product came out. It was like $80. It was really cheap. And then it just like, oh wow, this is really cool. And it went up and up and up and up and up. And then boxes were like $500-$600. This time boxes come out and they're 160, 170 like US out of the gate, direct from the Fanatic store. And you were limited to 3. I cannot tell you the amount of people that went in and they bought their 3, opened 1, and then took the other 2 and sold them immediately for 3x, right? These boxes are already $450, like a week after release. And it was even like the day of. Dude, on the 1st of February, these boxes were already $450. So like they're instantly triple, So like that is just that's going to piss people off. And that's just going to leave a bad taste in people's mouth. Breakers are not going to break as much of it because it's insanely expensive immediately. Like I'll break some of it, but I'm not going to break as much as I did last year because it's just the upcharge is crazy right off, right from the get. And like, Logofractor is a product similar to Sapphire that we'll talk about where like, if you've got drivers or teams or whatever that have inserts, like, the Speed Demons, the Speed Wheels 1975, Helmet Collection, all those insert type stuff, those are usually going to hit more because you get a certain amount of those parallels in a case or, box, whatever. Whereas if you just have a driver that's got a 1 through 200 card, like Legends, outside of the ones that have Floret, because again, that's an insert, dude, it is gonna be really tough to hit like just the one driver. Or you take like, look at F3 drivers or F2 or whatever, those are gonna be really hard to pull if all they have is like 1 or maybe 2 cards in the 1 through 200 set. Just because, I mean, there's not a lot of parallels. You only get 4 in a box, the 2 in each pack, right? And then you get the, the regular packs that don't really have much in them. So ultimately, it'll be a fun rip, but it's not going to be last year. Don't think that this is going to be last year's product because it just never is. Nothing is ever the first year. But it's cool. I haven't ripped any yet, but we'll have some on the channel soon. I think AJ, Chris maybe are going to be ripping some, and then eventually I'll have some available as well, and I'm sure Caitlin will. So yeah, overall cool products. Again, I think on paper it's better than last year. You won't see that reflected in singles price sales and things like that, but it's not bad. I like it.
Rose Gold 101 is probably one of the least underwhelming 101s in Formula One.
Yeah. I mean, it's a clear third, right? Like it's not as good as Pad, and nothing will ever be as good as Superfractor. But yeah, it's a clear third for sure.
I actually opened a couple of boxes last year and actually hit like I think 2 of them in one box or one pack or something.
Insane, man.
I am red-green colorblind, but I didn't even know that I hit 101. I thought it was just a base card. Like that's
tough to see.
It is tough to see. All right. We're going to bring it home with usually one of the better products of the year with Sapphire Edition F175. Scott, we are going to have an EQL drop, which means you have to enter. You are given the opportunity to buy, and you're actually charged if you're selected. If you're not, you get the sorry, try again email. But Scott, we are going to see that this is going to drop on Thursday, February 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The drop will be open. I imagine, Scott, it'll be open for 1 hour.
Yeah, usually the EQLs I think are open for around an hour, and I don't know exactly, and maybe it's been shared, but it's probably a limit of like 2 boxes or something like that. I doubt you're going to be able to buy a case, but you never know. And I would encourage you. Same thing I said to people who put in those orders for Chrome. If you got a case at 2,900 or you got a box at whatever it was, like don't cancel that order. And like, cases are 4,000 plus right now for Chrome. But so for Sapphire, it's even more of a jump, right? And granted, they're expensive this year. I think I was talking to some folks, and last year it was like, 280 under 300, right around there or something. This year, they're four. And again, this is not official, by the way. I do want to say, like, this is a screenshot that we saw of like something somewhere, but it looks like the projected price is basically $450 a box, which is substantial in terms of an increase. But also look at every year of Sapphire that we've seen, the price always goes up. And especially look at 2023 and 2024, those are $1,000 a box at this point. And 2020 won't even discuss. But so I still think at 450, this is a great buy. Because again, you're getting the full suite of inserts, and we can go through it, but you're also getting some other new cool things. And so again, we'll have our collector's cheat sheet coming out. Shows you the release date. There's about 1,050 cases. So this stuff is short printed. 1,050 cases is not a lot. You think if you look at what hobby and value were both 6,200 a piece. So you had the 12,400 cases of Chrome, and you're going to have 1,050 roughly cases of Sapphire. So that's pretty amazing. There's new inserts this year. So we're used to Sapphire Selections. Last year, they changed it from like a, card that can have a parallel and everything to just being an SP case hit. This year, it looks like they're kind of continuing with it just being like a case hit type card with no parallels. But the odds actually show that you should be getting around 2 of them. So we can go through kind of, and I'll just talk through everything as we go through each slide. But so again, Sapphire Selections, it's 1 in 40 packs. So basically, if you're opening 5 boxes on average, you'll get 1. So in a case, on average, you should get 2. And there is a checklist here. We've got Bortoletto, Leclerc, Piastri, Antonelli, Stroll, Hadjar, Behrman, Colapinto, and Albon. So again, and this is very common, we've got all the rookies that really matter. No offense to Liam Lawson or his fans, but right now, those are the 4 most popular. And Charles Leclerc, finally getting a little love here on the checklist. Love to see it. So that's your Sapphire Selections. Infinite Sapphire. So we've seen this in other products, especially soccer related products we've seen. This is a case hit because this is 1 in 80 packs, right? So it's 1 in 10 boxes. This one has kind of the opposite that you saw from Sapphire Selections. So you've got Verstappen, Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Alonso, Lawson is the only rookie, and then Ocon, Gasly, Sainz, and Hulkenberg. So I think it is actually exactly opposite from Sapphire Selections. So if you got selected for Sapphire, you're not infinite. It's you're going the other way. That was a terrible joke. But anyway, so Infinite Sapphire is new. We had an image up there of like a soccer card. We blurred it out because we don't want to, we don't.
Basically, there's like 2 rings on each side of the.
It's kind of like Helix, but different, little bit. Look up Infinite Sapphire in soccer, and that is it, pretty much. Speed Demons, of course, all the inserts again, right? All the inserts are in here. Speed Demons, so it's going to be the same checklist. I'm not going to go over every checklist. And they all, again, start at gold, right? There's gold, orange, black, and white. Now, there is some, we don't know on the checklist whether it's purple or it's black. There is a little confusion on that. So purple is either, or out of 10 is either purple or black. I don't know 100%. We're, hopefully they'll share some more information. On the checklist, they actually might be black, but I don't know. We'll have to dive into it. And we haven't seen images yet either. As soon as we get images, we'll share them, but we haven't seen images. So we kind of made mock-ups and then just blurred it. So you can't see. Ace of Trades, of course, is in there. And then we've got all of the other, inserts. We can kind of just, rifle through them. 1975 Speed Wheels. And of course, Floor It, which I think will be really cool to see. And then the big one that everyone is going to be looking for is Helmet Collection, right? Helmet Collection is going to be epic. No Helmet Collection autos this year because, again, they didn't have the issue where they put the pad autos in Chrome. So just Helmet Collection standard stuff. But those will definitely be a big chase that people will love. And then there's their full suite of autographs again this year. in Sapphire, which is something they did for the first time last year. Except this year, we actually have our pads, which is great. But Sapphire should be fun. Yeah, it's out on the 12th. I know we got like an email saying like you can't rip it until the 13th. Even if you have it on the 12th, release day to the public isn't until the day after. And they set out this like kind of just blanket message to everyone that has a direct account and said that you can't rip this stuff until the 13th at 9 a.m. Now, I'm sure some people will, get the product early and don't have an account, so they'll rip it and, do whatever you want with that. But we won't have breaks until at least the 13th. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, this is not a product like Chrome where, we're going to have a lot of it. This is going to be tough to get with only 1,050 cases. Like, this is going to be tough to get. If you get a case, I'm telling you, if you get a case or boxes, pull the trigger, because if you get, buyer's remorse and you want to get out of it, DM me because we'll buy them from you. And we'll tip you for getting them. So yeah, we would love to get our hands on as much of this as possible. I love Sapphire, always have. And I think, it'd be really fun to run, Sapphire breaks, run like Sapphire Chrome mixers would be awesome. Maybe throw in a little logo there like we did last year. I mean, I remember last year doing the 4 product mixers with like finest logo, Sapphire and Chrome, and, mixing in Paddock Pass and stuff. So, but yeah, so excited for that. I mean, we get Chrome on the 22nd and then Logofractor on the 29th and then Sapphire on the 12th. I mean, woof. Within 3 weeks, that's 3 products. My God. Yeah, so much for spacing them out. But yeah, and we've already had Echalenza this year, and Lights Out and stuff. And who knows, maybe there'll be some more products coming. Hopefully not for a bit. Give us some time to enjoy the other products and to breathe a little bit. But yeah, overall, lots of stuff happening this year, and lots happening within the next couple weeks.
Exciting time as always.
Absolutely.
All right, Scott, 1 hour, 20 minutes, probably one of our longest episodes in quite some time, but you give each of us a microphone and some video cameras, and you give us a topic of Formula One. We are going to talk quite a bit about that.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like, this podcast was always going to be long, just given there was so much to cover with Chrome. Once we had the release, from the good to the bad. I mean, there's just a lot to talk through. And then, yeah, we had another release that came out, and we've got another release that's coming out. So yeah, this was going to be a long one. Let us know in the comments if you plan on entering the EQL for Sapphire. I'd be curious to see. I think the majority of people will, but I mean, it's a big price increase from last year. So I'm curious to see if that price increase is too much for folks and they're gonna sit this one out, or if they're still gonna enter. So let us know in the comments if you've made it through all hour and 20 minutes of this podcast so far. Let us know in the comments if you are planning on entering the EQL.
Absolutely. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm probably going to lose and probably up my EQL score for the next time. Allegedly, Scott, every time I fail, I supposedly have better odds. So
that's right.
Nobody has failed more than I have with EQL. So Topps,
you've never won.
I haven't gotten anything EQL in probably the last like 6 or 7 things.
Wow.
I think one of the biggest L's was like not getting anything for Dynasty. That was kind of a. I
didn't get anything for Dynasty. I don't think anybody in the US got Dynasty. I literally have not heard from a single person who got EQL in the US for Dynasty. So
all I'll say is I hope this Sapphire release goes better than the basketball one, because that was atrocious also. So
what happened with that? I didn't even hear.
Just the same thing. Like nobody got it. But a lot of the
yeah, Sapphire for me, I'm not gonna talk about this too much. I know we've been talking for forever, but for basketball, that was perplexing how short printed they made that set, because dude, they could have printed that thing to the moon and it would have sold. So it's an interesting business decision. I'm not here to judge Topps on their business decisions, but I just would have assumed first year of, basketball license.
I think because it's not a
money
traditional
printer
like
go
hobby release, it's more of an online. There's supposed to be some exclusivity to it.
I don't know. I mean, hey,
I mean,
guess
these are
you're
things that
right,
used to be
but
like Montgomery Club only type stuff.
yeah,
So
that's going away, by the way.
it
Did you
is
hear about
going on.
that?
I
Yeah,
did
no
hear
more
that. Yeah.
Montgomery Club. So don't try to get a membership anymore. And if you've got it, get whatever products they're offering you. But maybe if they're good, I don't know. I never had one. I wish I had one for 2020 Sapphire, though. I'll tell you what.
All right, Scott, let's pull the plug on this thing before we go.
All
completely off
right,
the
let's
rails.
get out of here. But appreciate you. If you've hung out all this time, you're a legend. And you're probably in the legend chat. And again, please let us know in the comments if you are going to enter the EQL. Also, if you haven't already, if you've listened this far, you must not hate our voices. Please like and subscribe. We could use it to help grow the channel. But in the meantime, guys, don't forget, collect your cardboard and keep it carbon.